Daf Yomi, Tractate Sanhedrin, page 41b, top of the page with the words Vekavua Bishmei. And Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi established it in the Mishnah in his name. Ki havilamad ben Zakai hava karile ketalmida yoshev lifnei rabo. Ki hava limed hava karale Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakai. Ki karile ben Zakai al shem de meikara veki karile Rabban Yochanan ben Zakai al shem de hashta. Rabban Yochanan ben Zakai. Rabban Yochanan ben Zakai. Wow. Amazing. Ki karale ben Zakai al shem de mi kare. Ki karale Yochanan ben Zakai al shem de hashta. When he was studying, they called him Ben Zakai, in the manner they would call a student sitting before his teacher. When he was teaching others, they called him Rabban Yochanan ben Zakai. In terms of the Braita and the Mishnah, when they called him Ben Zakai in the Mishnah, that was based on the name that he was called initially. And when they called him Rabban Yochanan ben Zakai in the other Braita, that was based on the name that he was called now. Ma ben chakirot kule ma afilu shtayim omrim pshita ki amar echad en yodea edutan kayemet ki amri betre nami edutan kayemet. The Mishnah teaches an incident occurred, and Ben Zakai examined the witnesses about the stems of figs. What is the difference between interrogations and examinations? In the case of interrogations, if one of the witnesses says, "I do not know the answer," their testimony is void immediately. In the case of examinations, if one says, "I do not know the answer," but even if two witnesses say, "We do not know the answer," their testimony still stands. The Gemara asks, what is the meaning of even if two say? Isn't it obvious? The Mishnah already stated that when one witness says, "I do not know," their testimony stands, indicating that knowledge of the answers to these types of questions is not required. Accordingly, when two witnesses say that they do not know, their testimony stands as well. What is the novelty of this ruling? אפילו שניים אומרים ידענו ואחד אומר אין יודע עדותן בטלה כמן כרבי עקיבא דמכה שלושה לשניים. Rav Sheshet said this clause is referring to the first clause of the Mishnah, and this is what it is saying with regard to the interrogations. Even if two witnesses say, "We know," and one additional witness says, "I do not know," their testimony is void. In accordance with whose opinion is this Mishnah written? In accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Akiva, who compares in all court proceedings 3 witnesses to 2, holding that just as 2 witnesses must testify a fully valid testimony, so it is with 3. Therefore, if the 3rd witness does not know the answer to an interrogation, the testimony of all 3 is void. Amar Rabbi, no, there isn't Kemes, Katani, Ela Amar Rabbi Hachikamar, Afil Chakiros, Shnaim Amrim Yadanu, Yachad Marini Yodia, Ejusan Kemes, Keman, Delo Chavi Akiva. Rava says, what the Mishnah teaches, their testimony stands, not, their testimony is void. Rather, Rava said, this is what the Mishnah is saying. Even with regard to the interrogations, if 2 witnesses say, "We know," and 1 witness says, "I do not know," their testimony stands, as the court accepts the testimony of the 2. In accordance with whose opinion is this Mishnah written? Not in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Akiva. Rav Kahana Rav Sofer Tanu Sanhedrin Berabah Paga Bahu Rabbi Bar Chama Amalahu Mai Amri Tu Bes Besanhedrin de Berabah Amri Le Umai Amrinan Ba Besanhedrin Gredeta Mai Kashilach. The Gemara relates Rav Kahana and Rav Sofer studied Tractate Sanhedrin in the school of Rabbah. Rami Bar Chama encountered them. Rami Bar Chama said to them, "What do you say concerning Tractate Sanhedrin that you learned in the school of Rabbah?" Rav Kahana and Rav Sofer said to him, "And what do we say concerning the regular Tractate Sanhedrin? And what is difficult for you? Do you have a specific difficulty you would like to have answered?" Amar lahu Mahu dikatani Ma ben chakirot lebedikot. Chakirot echad omer en yodea edutan betela. Bedikot amar echad en yodea afilu shnayim omrim en anu yodim edutan kayemet. Nechti. Idi ve'idi deoraita hi. Ma yishna chakirot u'ma yishna bedikot. Rami Bar Chama said to him, "I have a difficulty from that which is taught in the Mishnah. What is the difference between interrogations and examinations? In the case of interrogations, if one of the witnesses says, 'I do not know the answer,' their testimony is void immediately. In the case of examinations, if one says, 'I do not know the answer,' and even if two say, 'We do not know the answer,' their testimony still stands." Rami Bar Chama asks, after all, this type of question and that type of question are required by Torah law. What is different about interrogations and what is different about examinations? Why is there a difference in halacha between the two? Amri le hachihashta b'chakirot amar en yodea edutan betela tihavia la edut she'iyata yachol hazima bedikot amar echad vehen en yodea edutan Kayemet edutan she'ata yachol hazimahu. Rav Kahana and Rav Sofer said to him, "How can these cases be compared? With regards to interrogations, if one witness says, 'I do not know,' your testimony is void, as it is testimony that you cannot render conspiratory testimony. If the witnesses do not state a specific time and place, there is no way for the witnesses to claim that the first witnesses had been with them elsewhere at the time they claim the event occurred. By contrast, with regard to the examinations, if one of the witnesses says, 'I do not know,' their testimony stands, as it is testimony that you can render conspiratory testimony. Amalahu ihachi amri tehuba tuva amri tehuba Amri le mituvate demar amridan ba tuva minzihute demar lo amridan ba velo chada. Rami Bar Chama said to them, "If you said an incisive statement like this about this tractate, you said much about it." Rav Kahana and Rav Sofer said to him, "Due to the Master's goodness, that is, due to your goodwill and desire to accept our answer to your question, we said much about it, but with the Master's rebuke and challenge, we would not say even one answer about it." Meaning, if you had wished to criticize this answer, you could have refuted it, and it would have been as if we did not say any answer. Echad omer, Nekul Ad Kama, Amar Rav Acha Bar Chanina, Amar Rav Asi, Amar Rav Yochanan, Ad Rubo Shel Chodesh. The Mishnah teaches that if one witness says the event occurred on the second of the month, and one witness says that the event occurred on the third of the month, their testimony stands, since it is possible to say that one witness knows of the addition of days the previous month, while the other witness does not know of it. Their testimony is considered congruent. The Gemara asks, until how many days into the month does the court assume that one of the witnesses does not know when the month began? Rav Acha says that Rav Asi says that Rav Yochanan says until the majority of the month has passed. Amar Rav Af Anan Nami Tinina Echad Omer B'Shlosh V'Echad Omer B'Chamisha Eidutam V'Til Amai Nemer Shezeh Yodea B'Shnei Iburin V'Zeh Eino יודע בשני עיבורים, אלא לאו משום דברובה ידע. Rava says we learn this in the mission as well. As it teaches, if one witness says the event occurred on the 3rd of the month, and one witness says the event occurred on the 5th of the month, their testimony is void. But why is it void? Let us say that it is not a contradiction, as this witness knows of 2 additions, meaning that a day was added for the 2 previous months, and that witness does not know of the 2 additions. Rather, it is not void because once the majority of the month has passed, a witness knows what day it is, so that an error of 2 days cannot occur. Le'olam emalach beruba lo yada ubeshipura yada echad shipura amar letaheh v'trei shipura lo amar letaheh. The Gemara rejects this proof. Actually, I could say to you that a witness may not know the day, even once the majority of the month has passed. The reason for the ruling of the Mishnah is that he knows about the shofar, which the court would blow at the new moon. It is possible that with regard to one blast of the shofar, it could be said that he erred and was not aware of it. With regard to 2 blasts of the shofar, it cannot be said that he erred. By contrast, in the case of the Mishnah, here, perhaps as long as the witnesses are testifying about 2 consecutive days with 1 month, the error of one of them persisted throughout the month. Amar Rabbi Acha bar Chanina, Amar Rav Asi, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Ad kama mevarchen al chodesh, ad shetismale pegimasa. V'chama, Amar Rabbi Yaakov bar Idi, Amar Rabbi Yehuda, Ad shiva, Nardai Amri, Ad shisha asar. Having cited a statement of Rabbi Acha bar Chanina, citing Rav Asi, citing Rabbi Yochanan, the Gemara cites another statement in his name. Rabbi Acha bar Chanina says, that Rav Asi says, that Rabbi Yochanan says, until how many days into a new month may one recite a blessing on the month? Meaning, Berkat Levana, Kesh HaChodesh, until the flaw of the moon is filled, when it no longer appears deficient. And until how many days is that? Yaakov Eidi says, that Yehuda says, until 7 days of the month has passed. The sages of Narda say, until 16 days of the month have passed.